the San Francisco Giants. And you brought up something I thought was really interesting, which is, if we just rewind this thing 6 months ago in the offseason, coming off of missing out on Carlos Correa with that whole debacle, missing out on Aaron Judge. Now, the San Francisco Giants have won 8 in a row. They got 40 wins in 72 games. They're 3.5 back of first place in the NL West. Could you ask for anything more?
No. In fact, if you go back to the offseason and what was going on with the Giants, they miss out on Aaron Judge. They miss out on Carlos Correa. Everybody's talking about how there's not a lot to look forward to. I heard Dave Fleming on with the Morning Roast. He was saying how people are complaining about no stars the past few years with the San Francisco Giants. This is better. Mm-hmm. This is better. This is better than having signed Carlos Correa and being 40-32. It's better because you have guys from your own farm system. And I'm ready to say, dare I say, it's better than having Aaron Judge and being 40-32. There's a subtle difference between players who play for a professional organization that come up through the ranks or that they start their career there. There's a little bit of a difference with free agents who come. Now, beggars can't be choosers, don't get me wrong. If you can get a great free agent, you take a great free agent. But the reality of the situation is, right now the Giants have Patrick Bailey, they got Matos, Casey Schmidt, they got Harrison and Luciano in the minor leagues. They've got veterans. They've got exactly what you want, don't you? It's a mix. It's a mix, and one by one, younger players are coming up. And I'm sorry, that is how you generate interest. You don't generate interest in a short period of time. We didn't get attached to Posey, Crawford, Lincecum, Bumgarner, Belt in a season. We got attached to them over the course of 3 to 5 seasons. Same with Steph Curry, Draymond Green, and Klay Thompson. So to me, this is the start of something that is better than had it started with Carlos Correa in the summer.
And, of course, the common denominator in all of that is success. And that's what we're starting to see right now with the Giants. We're starting to see that beautiful blend of young and old come together and win you ball games. And not just win you games, but come back from down 4-2 in the ninth against the Padres. Come back from down to your final strike against the Cardinals. Obviously, they're playing some amazing baseball. But to put it in perspective of, kind of the feeling that I think the Giants are evoking right now, it's the longest win streak since 2021, since that magical season. And if I understand 107 may not mean much to people after the year that they put together last season, but right now, I would say that this season does feel even different than the 107 year because of what you're talking about, because of the homegrown, up-and-coming type of talent, mixed with the old veterans. A guy like Brandon Crawford has bought in. A guy like Jock Peterson, I know he's not from the Giants farm system, but he's a veteran. He's bought in. Guys on the pitching staff have bought into their roles. And when you get buy-in mixed with victory, then you start to find, it does become in a way more fun because it's something that's unexpected. This last offseason, all the expectations for this team were completely reset. And a lot of it was because of their own doing. They swung and they missed on a lot of big-name free agents. And even if you want to talk about the amount of money they spent on the guys they got, well, a couple of those guys haven't even helped you. It's been about the internal growth that we've seen both from the farm system as well as some resurgent seasons from guys that have been with the team that we've now had time to watch grow, a la Lamont Wade, Mike Yastrzemski, who's the hero last night, 3 for 5 with a couple of big hits, 4 RBI, none bigger than the last 3 of the night. And so I'm 100% with you. I feel like this Giants team is one that is easier to get on board with, almost not having the big boys, not having the Correa or the Judge. I might push back a little bit on Aaron Judge because I think he's an all-time talent. But Carlos Correa right now is middling. A guy like Carlos Rodon, who people thought about bringing back, is right now just sitting on the IL. He's standing pat. He can't get on the mound. And you're looking at up and down the roster, players stepping up, putting themselves in position to succeed, and the front office being okay with all of the noise that they heard this offseason, and even the beginning of the season, and saying, we're going to stick to our process, we're going to stick to our spreadsheets. And lo and behold, Steiny, this is a team that is not only watchable, but the San Francisco Giants are good.
And they're starting to be more fun, and that'll happen when you win more games. The thing that I always come back to, and I said it years ago, was when you saw what the Dodgers were doing and you saw what the Padres were doing and you saw what the Giants are trying to do, I would always say, well, how are they ever going to finish in first or second place with those two juggernauts who load up every single year?
Stay hot.
So, of course, I lost my train of thought because my daughter calls me during my show.
Not in the power chair.
But it's my daughter from London. So, but last year we saw the Phillies get to the World Series as a wild card team. All you have to do in baseball is get to the postseason. It doesn't matter how you get there. It really doesn't. Once you get there, you can make hay. So to me now, it doesn't matter if they win the National League West or are the first wild card. Just get in. And this season especially, because you come into this season with no expectations, and now you're 40-32. This year's absolute gravy, I think, at this point, as long as you can continue to stay interesting. And as of now, you look at the standings, they have every right to think that they may make the postseason. So I'm interested to know from Giants fans at 888-957-9570, how much do you believe in this team? How much fun are you having? Do you think this team has staying power? Because to me, it looks like it does. They got to get over the hump of the starting pitching right now and figure out how they're going to kind of piecemeal that together. But the Giants have something going, if for no other reason than it almost feels, and I said this to you a little bit earlier, it almost feels like they have a system, kind of like the Warriors. You know how the Warriors play an open passing game style, and it's a little bit different, and not everybody fits. I almost feel like the Giants have a system, and it's obviously a lot of versatility at different positions. It's lefties who hit righties, it's righties who hit lefties. They love to turn around. They love to pinch hit early in a game to turn around a pitcher, or they love to change their pitchers early in a game to favorable matchups mid game. So I think in a way they have a system too that the players are buying into, if for no other reason than they have to.
Well, we're going to talk to someone who's been responsible for grooming some of that young talent, being a part of the system both as a player and now as a member of the San Jose Giants. Travis Ishikawa is going to come on with us at 11 o'clock, and then we're going to speak to former general manager Bobby Evans of the San Francisco Giants at 1 o'clock. So we're going to get a perspective from a player as well as someone who's in the system and, of course, someone who helped create a system. I think it applies to the Warriors. I think it also applies to the San Francisco 49ers. Kyle Shanahan has his system. And I'm curious what, in addition to fans feel about the Giants right now, if we're taking the temperature of the winning streak, it could all come to a skidding halt tonight, but that's not the point. The point is that they have over 72 games demonstrated that this system under Farhan Zaidi and, of course, the extension of him on the field, Gabe Kapler, is creating positive results over an elongated period of time, over a sample size. And so how do you feel about that? How do you feel about the system for the, what do you think it is? Is it completely dependent on homegrown talent? Because right now they're reaping the benefits of that. Sure, a guy like Luis Matos comes up to fill in for an injured Mitch Haniger, but he comes up with a big fly out late in that game last night that moves an important runner over.
Yep.
Patrick Bailey obviously has been incredible behind the plate. He comes up with the sacrifice fly to bring in Yaz to push the game to extra innings. Casey Schmidt, who we thought might not have been available, comes up, pinch hits late, gets a big walk. A guy like Devin Wynn Just a random reliever out of nowhere throws you 5 innings after giving up a bomb to begin his outing. Like, these are young, not necessarily no-name players, but players that, like you're talking about, Steiny, have developed. So what is the Giants system? Do you believe it's working this season? Do you see it working down the stretch of this season, potentially into the playoffs? Where are you at with the San Francisco Giants? 888-957-9570. Because right now, I would identify the system, Steiny, as one that is not necessarily looking for the big name. They don't need the big name, but they're about creating the big name. And sure, they don't have maybe at this point a big first-round pick and a prodigy such as a Buster Posey, but what they do have is still a connection to the past success in Brandon Crawford, the last piece of it, and then you have younger players on the front end of their careers, and the Matoses, the Baileys, the Schmitz, but then you have those guys in the middle that have been here for some time that maybe haven't been given the accolades of an all-world type talent, an all-MLB type player. But you have the Estradas, you have the Lamont Wades, you have even a guy like J.D. Davis, you have Jock Peterson, you have David VR, you have Austin Slater coming off the bench. There are so many pieces on this team, Steiny, that I think aren't necessarily ones that make you get up and cheer, but apparently could draw 35,000 people to the ballpark last night.
Yeah, look, Farhan's been here 5 years, Kapler 4. And I think, or this is the 4th and 5th, respectively. I think we've got to acknowledge that Farhan Zaidi can build a team. He can build a team that's competitive. The first year was Bochy's last year. Let's throw that one out. They go 29-31 in the COVID year. They had a shot the last game of the season to make the postseason. They come back next year. They win 107 games. Last year, of course, they were 81-81. That's still a 500 year. I know they weren't in it, and they made some hay late to get to 500, but here we are the following year, and now you're 8 games over 500. The reality of the situation is Farhan Zaidi can always put together a team that can compete. The question is, how often do you go from just a team that can compete to a team that has a legitimate chance to make a postseason run? And 2 years ago, that was the team. The Giants were that team. They won 107 games. I know they didn't win. They didn't beat the Dodgers, but they got to the postseason. It looks like this team at 40-32 is figuring out how they need to play. They're figuring out their roles. And I don't know if everybody's bought in completely, but there's no problems. There's not a problem on that roster that I see.
No, and in fact, yeah, I feel like you're getting guys that are more willing to acclimate to their new roles. And it's not something like, I'm curious, like Gabe Kapler right now is in a position where I think when it's working, when it's going well, he's the genius and he's the mastermind, or Farhan, depending on how you want to put it. And when they're losing, everything just doesn't seem to be clicking. But if the Giants put together another quality season signing, they make the playoffs, maybe they fizzle out, maybe they win a round, maybe they go all the way, who knows? Then we're looking at 2 of the last 3 seasons being successes for the Giants.
Yep.
Because the definition of our success is going to be just making the playoffs. Just get in, give yourself a chance. Of course, those 3 World Series teams were maybe not the best team of all of the MLB teams. And this is the other part of it, too. Right now, look around the majors. Like, who else in the NL is scaring you right now? Who else in the division is scaring you right now? I know the Giants don't have 6 All-Stars on this roster, but they don't need to win games. And right now, in the month of June, they've shown you across the last 8, but not only that, going back to the beginning of the month, that they can come from behind in games. 5 of their wins this month have been from down in the 7th inning or later. So they also kind of have a flair for the dramatic, and that's another trait of a good team.
Atlanta doesn't scare you?
The Atlanta Braves are a really good team. And yes, I mean, sure, okay, they scare you, but I would tell you that the San Francisco Giants have just as good of a record against 500 or better teams in baseball.
Fair enough. I was just throwing some teams out there that I wondered if you were worried about as a Giant fan. You look at the NL West. I mean, what are your feelings right now on the Dodgers, the Padres, and the Diamondbacks? If you look at the Giants as one of 4 teams, I mean, handicap it for me.
Yeah, I mean, and to go back, yes, the Braves are a better team. They're the best team in the NL right now. As far as the NL West is concerned, I think every team is flawed, including the Giants. Like they have things that they can get better at. We kind of touched on the starting pitching, but look, you go down the list. Arizona has played great baseball thus far. They do not have at this point a whole lot of, we'll call it pedigree. I mean, Evan Longoria might be the most veteran established member of that group, and he doesn't play a whole lot for that team. I think the Dodgers have a very top-heavy roster similar to the Padres, but the Dodgers also right now have one of the worst bullpens in baseball, and that was their downfall in much of the Giants series. The Padres, meanwhile, also have a top-heavy roster. They're not very deep, and there's just something about San Diego. As much as I do love the city, my family lives down there. They are some Padres fans. Even they are kind of a wait and see when it comes to the dads because of nights like last night. Like,
by the way, nobody calls him that.
What do you mean?
Nobody calls him that. I had no idea what you were talking about last night when I got that text about the dad. For the first text about dad, I didn't know if you forgot to put an apostrophe in it. They're the Padres. When did they? Where did you hear that from? I know I'm a little older than you, but we didn't do that in the 80s and 90s.
Did you ever take Spanish in school?
Sure.
What is padre? Translate
Father.
To? What is another word for father? Dad, father. No, I'm glad you finally picked it up. I'm glad you picked it up. Yeah.